Part 8. The Grand Opening.
I'm writing this letter on my way home. I wanted to call you, but I just can't phone. I'm so sorry, I never been brave. I want you to know that I'm on my own. Oh, no one to greet me when I get home, and I miss you in every single way. Can you see what you do for me? I believe some things are meant to be. I will always love you. I will always love you. I will always.
Miles worked hard to finish his gift for Tate. He would have finished it faster if he didn't have to work at Riley's. Nevertheless, he'd managed to continue work at the bar, and by the time he'd finished his musical work, the bar was also nearing completion, and he still hadn't seen Tate. She had called him a couple of times, but only to ask how far he'd got with her ideas. However, she made no mention of visiting him or the bar, and she was always very busy. Every evening. Tate's behaviour was playing havoc with Miles's mind, and only served to concentrate his mind on her gift. Miles found Tate's spare keys to her car in a drawer in the kitchen, put the CD in his jacket pocket, and inexplicably donned his fancy dress false moustache, which was in the drawer with Tate's keys. He drove to Tate's mother's house at the dead of night, parking his BSA 25 yards up the road, since the sound of the bike might wake someone up. He opened the car door, placed the CD on the driver's seat, and closed the door as quietly as he could. He locked the door and turned sideways to walk back to his bike. As he took his first stride towards his bike, a cat ran from beneath the car. Miles tripped, and in an attempt to break his fall, he fell against the front of the car and the alarm went off. Miles picked himself up and ran towards his bike, cursing to himself. The bike had just roared into life when lights appeared behind doors and windows on houses on either side of the road. Miles was gone before anyone could have seen him.
I put you together, now I'm falling apart. Life can be so strange. You see, oh, what you mean to me? Do you agree? Some things are meant to be. I will always love you. 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 I will always love
Miles was still sound asleep when the telephone rang at 7:30 that morning. It was Tate. "Hi, baby, it's me," she cooed. Miles was stunned. He couldn't remember the last time she had called him baby. "Tate, is that you?" He knew full well it was her, but was lost for words. "Who else do you think it is, babe?" she continued in the same soft tone. "Baby, I loved your message. I've been playing it since 2 this morning," she continued. "Since 2? How so?" Miles was puzzled. The neighbours saw you riding away. They thought you were a thief, but I told them it was you, and since they all know you're completely mad, well... How do they know I'm mad? Snapped Miles indignantly. Mum told them, said Tate without hesitation. Great, that's all I need, said Miles. Listen, I've decided to help you with the bar this week. I'm going to phone work and ask to have some time off. I'll call you later. Thanks, babe. I do love you. See you. Love you. Bye. Bye, said Tate, not changing her soft approach throughout the conversation. Cracked it! Exclaimed Miles, having put down the receiver. He leapt out of bed. Yes! He cried exuberantly. Riley's was beginning to look good. Tate's colour schemes and the rearrangement of the furniture gave a far more contemporary and informal feel to the bar. Miles smiled as he surveyed the new-look bar. Considering the budget, they'd done very well. He turned his mind to the celebrations he was planning for the following weekend. He had to work out some entertainment. More importantly, he had to work out a way of getting people to come. At 8:45 that morning, he found the answer to one of his problems. The telephone rang. "Miles, it's James. How are you?" James didn't wait for an answer. "I've had a marvellous weekend. There's someone I want you to meet. She's wonderful, so beautiful. She's... He paused, lost for the word he was looking for. "She's everything. I really believe she's the one." "Who are you talking about?" inquired Miles. "Angela. Who else?" "Angela? You never mentioned Angela," said Miles jokingly. "Sure I did. Never mind. You're pulling my leg again," said James. "Look, I wonder whether you would like to join us for a meal at my place tonight. I don't know how things are with your wife, but she's more than welcome to come," said James, barely able to contain himself. "Of course I'll come," said Miles. "See you at 8? OK, 8 it is," said James. Miles was left staring at the receiver, and James was gone. He found it hard to take in the new James. He shook his head, put the receiver down, and looked at his programme for the bar. Frank arrived. Tate breezed into the bar an hour later. She flung her arms around Miles's neck and kissed him. "I've been looking forward to this," she said, smiling. Miles was facing Frank as Tate clung to him. They both raised their eyebrows as one. "Right, let's get this show on the road, shall we, babe?" said Tate. "Whatever you say, lovely. I'm all yours." Tate went through the programme, ticking off jobs that had been completed and adding new tasks. Miles tried to stop her adding too much, but Tate had the bit between her teeth, and Miles knew better than to argue. It had already dawned on him that control was already being wrestled away from him. "Oh, by the way, babe, we have a dinner date tonight, if you're up for it," said Miles. "You're the boss," said Tate. "Am I?" muttered Miles, and added, "You wouldn't think so." "What's that, babe?" said Tate. Nothing. Just talking to myself," said Miles. "You sort out the entertainment, will you? And nothing too heavy," she said. Pat phoned the bar at 5 that afternoon. Miles had almost forgotten that Pat owned Riley's. "Miles, son, how's it going?" said Pat. "How are you, Pat?" said Miles, almost lost for words. "Oh, not so bad, son. Can't get Claire out of my mind, though. She's in my dreams. She's with me all the time. Is everything going well for you? You're still there, so we're still in business," said Pat. "Yes, we're certainly in business. I've made a few changes to help business a bit," said Miles nervously. "Riley's was Claire's and my dream, Miles. I hope you haven't changed things too much." "I don't really want alterations, son," said Pat. "Well, we're serving food," said Miles, trying to be helpful as he thought of Frank's wife efforts for the boys. "Ah, that's good. I suppose you've drafted in your wife to help you with that, have you?" Yes, she's been drafted in all right," said Miles, wishing the conversation would end. "I've decided to stay in Chicago with my family for a couple more weeks," added Pat. "What, 2 more weeks or 6 weeks in total?" inquired Miles. "2 more than I planned, maybe 3, but sure as hell 2, said Pat. "I hope you're enjoying yourselves and things get easier," said Miles hopefully. "They're a fine bunch, my family, and Claire's. They're looking after me just fine. Keep well, and call me when you're ready to come back, Pat," said Miles, and added, "No rush. All's well here. All under control. The boys wish you well too. Bye for now." Phew! Miles mopped his brow. He hadn't given any thought to the implications of his grand plan. Tate and Miles pulled up at the double-fronted 2-storey house at precisely 8. Frank and the boys had their instructions and had teased Miles mercilessly about their new boss. "Wow, this is cool, babe," said Tate as they parked at the foot of the driveway and made their way towards the front door. "Yeah, and he's a great fellow. Did I tell you he fixed my bike?" "Yeah, 3 times in the car already," said Tate. "He's a bit straight, but you have to look through that straightness and see the man," said Miles. "Yeah, I know. You told me that 3 times too." "Did I? Sorry, babe. I just want you to like him." "If you like him, I will like him," said Tate, smiling, while linking arms with Miles. "But you don't like any of my other friends," said Miles. "They're different," said Tate. The door opened before they reached it, and James came out with his hand outstretched to greet them. He kissed Tate on both cheeks and shook Miles's hand vigorously. Angela appeared at the door looking shy. "Beautiful, lucky sod," thought Miles. The foursome made their way through to the kitchen, where James was preparing their meal. "You girls go in the lounge with a drink, and we men will sort out the food," said James. "Why can't you cook, babe?" said Tate. "What makes you think I can't?" "Take your drink and leave it to us," said Miles, shooing Tate out of the room. Angela giggled. She liked both of them immediately. They were easy and seemed to be good with each other. They were all that she dreamed of. "She's beautiful, James," said Miles as soon as the women were out of earshot. "I know, and she's so clever." "Where did you meet her?" Miles inquired. "At work. She's a designer, but I haven't seen any of her designs yet." "Everyone says she's brilliant, though. I don't doubt them, because she seems to know about everything. And everyone," said James proudly. "You certainly seem to be happy," said Miles. "Happy? You just don't know how happy. She is the one, I'm sure," said James, looking towards the door with a faraway look in his eyes. "We had the greatest weekend of my entire life. I don't know what she sees in me. That place you put me onto was wonderful. I have to thank you for that. The moonlight over the sea, the stars, the love. I shall always remember it as the first time," said James, looking at the ceiling downlighters as his thoughts drifted back to the weekend. "Funny, I never thought of you as being one of life's true romantics," said Miles, smiling. "That's my territory. Next thing, you'll become a songwriter," he laughed. "It would be fair to say that up till now I haven't been the most romantic man in the world, but with Angela, it's different," said James, as though he had all the answers to all of the world's problems. "That's great," said Miles. "Tate looks lovely too," said James thoughtfully. "She's the best," said Miles. It was only natural that James would serve a 5-course meal, one of his favourite French recipes. Angela and Tate had hit it off. Angela had asked whether Tate would show her some of her designs. Tate had read about Angela in magazines and was thrilled to be talking about designs all evening. "While I remember, and sorry to interrupt you girls, Tate, have you mentioned opening night at Riley's to Angela?" said Miles, seizing an opportunity. "Yeah, babe, and Angela's going to ask around the office to see if any of the other girls want to come." "That's great," said Miles. "James, you'll be there, won't you?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," said James, gazing across at Angela adoringly. Miles noted all the looks and nuances that passed between James and Angela that night. It was gone midnight when they left James's house. "Well, did you like them?" asked Miles. "They're adorable, just adorable," said Tate. "Am I driving you back to your mother's and walking home, or are you staying with me?" said Miles in his best deep soft voice. "What do you think?" asked Tate. "I think we're going back home, lovely." Tate laughed. "Better find my satin underwear then." "I doubt there'll be time for that," said Miles. "You'll have to make time if you want me," Tate cooed. "Shit, this car's slow," said Miles. Miles and Tate worked hard that week preparing for the grand opening. They had become the team that they had been in the early years of their marriage. Riley's boys also worked hard, and by opening night that Friday, both inside and outside were finished. Miles and Tate thanked all the helpers, and they all had a mini celebration at 4 in the afternoon. Most of the boys would be returning that evening with girlfriends and spouses. They all felt part of Riley's. They would always feel part of Riley's. Naturally, Miles had told the boys tales of gorgeous young models turning up when Tate was out of earshot. Miles knew that half the LAPD would turn up, with any luck. Frank's wife Sandra had prepared enough food to feed an army, and by 7:30 they were ready. James arrived before 8 to offer moral support and told Miles that Angela had some things to do and would be late. The first few revellers turned up just before 8, Miles greeted them and took up his position behind the bar with Frank. Mainly they were locals who had seen the posters stuck to the windows of Riley's or who had received flyers in their mailboxes. At 9 the place went ballistic. Young women from Chevalier's arrived in cabs, and groups of young men, some with girlfriends, appeared from out of nowhere. By 9:30 the bar was getting overcrowded, and Miles had to ask some of Riley's boys to act as impromptu doormen. The band took their positions at 10 and started their set. At 11 they requested Miles to join them. Tate hadn't seen Miles perform for years. The lights dimmed around the bar, and the spotlights were trained on the far side of the dance floor, where the band had set up. "This is a big night in the history of Riley's, and I would like to thank..." Miles reeled off his thanks to all who had helped in the transformation of Riley's. "And this is for my wife, Tate. She's over there by the bar. Thanks, babe. Thanks for everything." Miles performed first time. People danced as Miles performed, and James was dragged onto the dance floor by one of the models from Chevalier's. He protested that he couldn't dance, but in the spirit of the occasion he reluctantly assumed a position on the dance floor with his partner. The number finished, and Miles made his way back to the bar, his hands shaken or backslapped by anyone who could touch him. Thank you everyone. If you come back, I'll do it again." A cheer went up. As Miles walked back behind the bar, he caught sight of one guest who clearly didn't like his performance. "Shit, James! James! James!" he called louder and louder. James was desperately trying to release himself from the clutches of his over-amorous dance partner. "You're so cool. What are you doing later, lover boy?" "Going home with my girlfriend, sweetheart," said James, escaping. "What's up, Miles? The song was great. Kind of reminded me of last weekend," said James. "Don't worry about last weekend, sunshine. Angela's been and gone," said Miles. "Get out there and square things up with her," he said with urgency. "I didn't do anything. Anyone could see I was trying to get out of it. Trust me, Angela won't see it that way. Go now," said Miles. James cut his way through the revellers and made his way into the street. He looked up and down but was unable to see Angela. "Damn," he thought as he reached for the keys to his BMW. He looked across at Riley's boys acting as doormen. "Got to get a cab," he thought. The opening night at Riley's was a huge success. Miles and Tate shook hands with everyone who helped make it possible, that is to say, those still standing and who hadn't left already. The bar now quiet, they hugged each other and giggled like two children. They sat down with a beer each and gazed at the glasses and general mess in and around the bar. "Tomorrow. We'll do this tomorrow," said Miles, referring to the cleaning. "I'm with you on that, babe. Let's look up and go." They stood at the door taking one last look, smiled at each other and turned the lights off. Tate and Miles slept well that night. James arrived at Angela's apartment at close to midnight. Getting a cab had proved difficult, and he was feeling anxious as he rang the buzzer. There was no answer. He tried several times and finally stepped back to see whether there were any lights on in her apartment. For a split second he thought he saw her pulling back from the window. A light was on, so he tried her phone and then her mobile. Both services were answered by their respective answering services. He left a message on each and called a cab home. Angela watched him get into the cab from behind the curtains. When she was sure he'd gone, she resumed drinking. She descended into her twilight world, where she was nothing and life meant nothing. She would not surface until the end of the weekend.